Welcome to the Routing and Data Delivery module of the Networking Fundamentals for Industrial Control Systems course. This module introduces the concepts and characteristics of routing and data delivery in an IP network. As a network operator, understanding these concepts to facilitate day-to-day operations and troubleshooting tasks is important. After you complete this module, you will be able to identify the concepts of routing functions, as well as end-to-end packet delivery and processing, and describe the concepts, components, and protocols that are involved in the routing process and protocols that are involved in multicast data transmission. In this lesson, you will be introduced to the concepts and components of routing and end-to-end packet delivery and processing. You will also be introduced to the concepts of routing protocols. This lesson will begin by describing the role of a router in inter-network communication. While switches change data frames between segments to enable communication within a single network, routers are required to reach hosts that are not in the local LAN. Routers enable inter-network communication by placing the interface of each router in the network of the other routers. They use routing tables to route traffic between different networks. In networking, a router is the device that is used to route traffic. Routers forward packets by learning about remote networks and maintaining routing information. To forward packets correctly, a router needs some basic information about the network and the forwarding packet. The primary forwarding decision of the router is based on Layer 3 information, which is the destination IP address. To be able to route something, a router or any entity that performs routing must perform these functions: path identification and selection. Determine from which sources, other routers, that the router can learn the path to the given destination. Determine the initial possible routes or paths to the intended destination, and determine whether the known paths to the destination are the most current. Packet forwarding. Determine the destination or address of the packet that needs to be routed. They must also be able to perform packet forwarding, which determines the destination or address of the packet that needs to be routed. During the process of path determination, routers evaluate the available paths to remote destinations to determine the most efficient path for forwarding packets. The routing process that runs on the router must be able to evaluate all the sources and select the best one to populate the routing table. A router must be able to determine which source of information, such as the routing protocol, the router should use if the router has identical routes to a network from different sources. Administrative distance is the feature that routers use to select the best path when there are two or more equal routes to the same destination network from two routing protocols. Administrative distance defines the reliability of a routing protocol. As seen here, the router on the far left has two paths to the destination network on the far right. One of the paths is learned through a dynamic routing protocol called Open Shortest Path First, and the other path is learned through Enhanced Interior Gateway Routing Protocol. Since EIGRP has a better lower administrative distance than OSPF, the router on the far left will use the EIGRP path and publish only the EIGRP path to the destination network in the routing table. As part of the path determination process, the routing process builds a table that identifies known networks and how to reach them. Routing tables include information about destinations and next hop associations. These associations tell a router that a particular destination is either directly connected to the router or that the destination can be reached via another router. Routers use the routing table to determine where to forward packets. They forward packets through a network interface toward the destination network. As you can see, the routing table of the router in the middle shows the forwarding rules. When the router receives a packet with a destination address on the 10.1.3.0 network, the router must forward the packet to router R2, the R2 interface with the IP address 10.1.2.2. This router is the next hop router and is on the path to the final destination. When a router receives an incoming packet, the router uses the destination address and searches the routing table to find the best path. If the router receives a packet with a destination address on the 172.17.14.0 network, it must forward the packet to the interface attached to the 172.17.100.0 network for forwarding onward towards its destination beyond that network. If no entry can be found, the router discards the packet. The routing table contains a list of all destinations that are known to the router and provides information about how to reach them. The routing table stores information about locally connected and remote networks. Notice that some of the information that is contained is for directly connected networks learned from the router configuration. Some information was learned from neighboring routers by using dynamic routing protocols such as OSPF and BGP. And some of the information was programmed in manually by the network administrator by defining static routes in the configuration of the router. Information in the routing table ultimately determines the outgoing interface for forwarding the packet. Depending on network size, complexity, desired security, and design, you can choose between a dynamic routing protocol and configuring static routes. Static routing has some advantages over dynamic routing. For example, static routing conserves router resources and are simple to configure in a small network. Static routing does not consume network bandwidth and the CPU resources of the router. Depending on the size of the network, a router requires some CPU cycles to compute the best way to remote networks. Static routes are commonly used in small networks that have few routers. Many small networks are designed as stub networks, networks that are accessed by a single route, and static routes are the most appropriate solution. The disadvantage of static routing can be summarized as follows: poor scalability and more manual configuration that is required in large networks that use static routing. Static routing is appropriate for networks that have fewer than 4 or 5 routers. Static routes require more manual configuration. Adding even one router with only one new network means that you must configure the newly added router with static routes to other networks, and also that you must configure all existing routers in the network with static routes to the new network. There are 2 different types of static routes. The first allows reachability to a specific network beyond router A. The second one, the default route, allows reachability to all known networks beyond router A. Router B will forward all packets that do not have a destination network that is listed in the routing table to router A. Organizations often use a combination of static and dynamic routes. Dynamic routing relies on a routing protocol for the exchange of routing information. A routing protocol defines the rules that a router uses when the router communicates with neighboring routers to determine paths to remote networks and maintain those networks in the routing tables. A routing protocol facilitates the exchange of routing information between networks, allowing routers to build routing tables dynamically. As routers become aware of changes to the networks for which they act as the gateway, or of changes to links between routers, this information is passed to other routers. When a router receives information about new or changed routes, the router updates the respective routing table and, in turn, passes the information to other routers. In this way, all routers have accurate routing tables that are updated dynamically and can learn about routes to remote networks that are many hops away. Routing protocols describe this information, including how updates are conveyed, what knowledge is conveyed, when to convey the knowledge, and how to locate recipients of the updates. Routers use a routing protocol to communicate network information to other routers, maintain their own routing tables, and ensure that other routers know about changes in the network. The purpose of a routing protocol includes the following: discovering remote networks. There is no need to manually define the available destination routes. The routing protocol discovers remote networks and updates the internal routing table of the router, maintaining up-to-date routing information. The routing table contains entries about remote networks. When changes occur in the network, routing tables are automatically updated. Choosing the best path to destination networks. Routing protocols discover remote networks. More paths to the destination are possible, and the best paths enter the routing table. Finding a new best path if the current path is no longer available. The routing table is constantly updated and new paths may also be added. When the current best path is not available or better paths are found, the routing protocol selects a new best path. A routing protocol distributes the information from a local routing table on the router. Different protocols use different methods to populate the routing table. Statically populating routing tables by manually configuring static routes is also possible. All directly connected networks are added to the routing tables automatically. When a routing protocol updates a routing table, the primary objective of the protocol is to determine the best information to include in the table. The routing algorithm generates a number called the metric for each path through the network. Sophisticated routing protocols can base route selections on multiple metrics, combining them into a single metric. Typically, the lower the metric value, the better the path. Metrics can be based on either a single characteristic or on several characteristics of a path. These metrics are most commonly used by routing protocols: bandwidth, delay, cost, and hop count. Bandwidth is the data capacity of a link, the connection between the two network devices. Delay is the length of time that is required to move a packet along each link from the source to the destination. The delay depends on the bandwidth of intermediate links, port queues at each router, network congestion, and physical distance. Cost is an arbitrary value that is assigned by a network administrator, usually based on bandwidth, administrator preference, or other measurement, such as load or reliability. Hop count is the number of routers that a packet must travel through before reaching its destination. In the figure, the hop count from host A to host B would be 2 if the path over the 100 megabits link is used. The hop count would be 3 if the path over the 1 gigabyte link is used. In the figure, the hop count from host A to host B would be 2 if the path over the 100 megabytes per second link is used. The hop count would be 3 if the path over the 1 gigabits per second link is used. The hop count would be 3 if the path over the 1 gigabytes per second link is used. Interior gateway protocols are used for routing within a routing domain. Those networks are under the control of a single organization. An autonomous system, or AS, commonly comprises many individual networks belonging to companies, schools, and other institutions. An IGP is used to route within the AS and also within the individual networks themselves. IGPs for IP include RIP, EIGRP, and OSPF, and others. Some IGPs may be adequate in large corporate networks but are not designed to manage tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of routes, such as the many thousands of routes that are present on the Internet. EGPs, however, are designed for use between ASs that are under the control of different administrations. BGP is an example of an EGP and is the routing protocol that is used in the Internet. BGP is typically used between ISPs and sometimes between a company and an ISP. Within an AS, most IGP routing can be classified as conforming to one of these algorithms. Distance vector. The distance vector routing approach determines the direction, or vector, and distance to any link in the inner network. Pure distance vector protocols periodically send complete routing tables to all connected neighbors. This mode of operation is key in defining what a distance vector routing protocol is. In large networks, these routing updates can become enormous, causing significant traffic on the links. For a router, the view of the network is based on the information that is provided by its neighbors. Link state. The link state approach creates an exact topology of the entire inner network. All link state routers use an identical map of the network and calculate shortest paths to reach the destination networks in relation to where they are on this map. Unlike their distance vector counterparts, complete routing tables are not exchanged periodically. Instead, event-based, triggered updates containing only specific link state information are sent. The advanced distance vector approach combines aspects of the link state and distance vector algorithms. EIGRP is a Cisco proprietary routing protocol that combines the advantages of link state and distance vector routing protocols. EIGRP acts like link state protocol with neighbor relationships but does not keep a full topology database. EIGRP is still based on the key distance vector routing protocol principle that information about the rest of the network is learned from directly connected neighbors. In this lesson, you will see a recap and highlight of the end-to-end processes that are involved in packet delivery through a network and the function of Level 2 to Level 3 data delivery between two endpoints on different Level 3 segments. There are three fundamental ways that IPv4 packet delivery occurs: unicast, broadcast, and multicast. In unicast, traffic is sent from one host to another host. In broadcast, traffic is sent from one host to all hosts on the local network. And in multicast, traffic is sent from one host to a group of hosts that are referred to as multicast receivers. Each of these packet delivery methods requires the use of specific types of IP addresses that a router will recognize and use for proper handling of the packet. There are three fundamental ways that IPv4 packet delivery occurs. Those ways include unicast, broadcast, and multicast. With unicast, traffic is sent from one host to another host. Broadcast traffic is sent from one host to all hosts on the local network. With multicast, traffic is sent from one host to a group of hosts that are referred to as multicast receivers. Each of these packet delivery methods requires the use of specific type of IP addresses that a router will recognize and use for proper handling of the packet. Unicast transmission sends data from one source to one receiver. Switches in the network will selectively forward the data out to only the specific port to which the host is attached on the local network based on a corresponding unicast MAC address. Routers will selectively forward the data out to a specific interface based on the information in the routing table, either directly to the host on a connected network or to the next hop router for the unicast address. To send data to multiple destinations using unicast, the sender has to make copies of the same packet and send them once for each receiver. Each copy will be addressed from the address of the source to the specific unicast IP address of each host receiving the data. This illustration shows a host transmitting 3 copies of data and a network forwarding each packet to 3 separate receivers. The host may only send to one receiver at a time because the host has to create a different packet destination address for each receiver. Broadcast may be used to send the same data to all receivers in a local network. The broadcast IP address of a network is a special address for each network that allows communication to all of the hosts in that network. To send data to all of the hosts in a network, a host can send a single packet that is addressed to the broadcast address of the network. Switches in the network will forward the data out to every port to reach all hosts in the local network because of the corresponding broadcast MAC address in the frame. Routers in the network block the propagation of broadcast packets from the local network upon recognizing the local broadcast IP address in the packet. Therefore, broadcast traffic is filtered at the router and is not forwarded through the rest of the network. Broadcasts are commonly used for network functions such as address resolution protocol. Multicast may be used to send the same data packets to multiple receivers. In multicast, the sender sends only one copy of a single data packet that is addressed to a group of receivers, a multicast group. Routers selectively replicate and forward the data packet to all outgoing interfaces where there are receivers. Receivers express their interest in multicast traffic by registering at their first hop router using the Internet Group Management Protocol, or IGMP. This action, in turn, permits the IP multicast routers to join the specified multicast group and to begin forwarding the multicast traffic onto the network segment. For some Layer 2 switches, multicast traffic is treated like an unknown MAC address or broadcast frame. This treatment causes the frame to be flooded out to every port within a virtual LAN. On these Layer 2 switches, all ports forward this traffic, resulting in wasted bandwidth on both the segments and on the end stations. IGMP snooping is a method for Layer 2 switches to intercept IGMP messages and learn where IP multicast receivers exist. This interception allows a switch to selectively forward multicast traffic to only the ports to which multicast receivers are attached. This illustration shows a host transmitting one copy of data and a network replicating the packet for each receiver. After reviewing the 3 fundamental ways that IPv4 traffic is delivered, let us take a deeper look at unicast forwarding, beginning with where the Layer 2 address fits into the host-to-host packet delivery process. All devices that are connected to an Ethernet LAN have MAC-addressed interfaces. Ethernet MAC addresses are assigned to end devices such as hosts and used to transport the frame across the local media. Ethernet MAC addresses are assigned to end devices such as hosts and are used to transport the frame across the local media. The Network Interface Card, or NIC, uses the MAC address in a frame to determine if a message should be passed to the upper layers for processing. Switches do not need assigned MAC addresses for frame forwarding. However, they need a MAC address when remote access management is configured. Here's the Layer 2 addressing in the host-to-host communications model. MAC addresses are assigned to end devices such as hosts. The physical interfaces on a router provides a Layer 2 function and are also assigned a MAC address. As seen in the example, the router has two interfaces that are directly connected to two PCs. Each PC in each router interface has its own unique MAC address. The MAC address is permanently encoded into a ROM chip on a NIC. The MAC address is made up of the OUI and the vendor assignment number. An Ethernet MAC address is a two-part 40-bit binary value that is expressed as 12-bit hexadecimal digits. The network layer provides connectivity and path selection between two host systems that may be located on geographically separated networks. This layer is where Layer 3 devices and addressing fit into the host-to-host communications model. At the boundary of each local network, an intermediary network device, usually a router, de-encapsulates the frame to read the destination address that is contained in the header of the packet, the Layer 3 PDU. Routers use the network identifier portion of this address to determine which path to use to reach the destination host. Once the path is determined, the router encapsulates the packet in a new frame and sends the packet toward the destination end device. Layer 3 addresses must include identifiers that enable intermediary network devices to locate hosts on different networks. In the TCP/IP protocol suite, every IP host address contains information about the network where the host is located. Intermediary devices that connect networks are called routers. The role of the router is to select paths for and direct packets toward a destination. This process is known as routing. A router uses a list of paths that is called a routing table to determine where to send data. Layer 3 addresses are assigned to end devices such as hosts and to network devices that provide Layer 3 functions. The router has a respective Layer 3 address on each interface. Each network device that provides a Layer 3 function maintains a routing table. As seen in the example, the two router interfaces belong to different networks. The left interface and the directly connected PC belong to the 192.168.3.0/24 network, while the right interface and the directly connected PC belongs to the 192.168.4.0/24 network. For devices in different IP networks, a Layer 3 device is needed to route traffic. To send data to a destination, a host on an Ethernet network must know the physical MAC address of the destination. Address Resolution Protocol provides the essential service of mapping IP addresses to physical addresses on a network. The term address resolution refers to the process of correlating the network layer IP address of a remote device to the locally reachable data link layer MAC address. To resolve an address, ARP broadcasts the known information, the target destination IP address and the respective IP address, onto the local network. All of the devices on the Ethernet segment receive the broadcast. When the target recognizes its address in the contents of the ARP request packet, it responds with the required MAC address in its ARP reply. The address resolution procedure is completed when the originator receives the reply packet, which contains the required MAC address from the target and updates the table containing all of the current bindings. This table is usually called the ARP table or ARP cache. The ARP table is used to maintain a correlation between each IP address and its corresponding MAC address. Let us continue by taking a step-by-step look at the process of delivering an IP packet over a routed network. In this example, host 192.168.3.1 has data that the host wants to send to host 192.168.4.2. The application does not need a reliable connection. Therefore, UDP is selected. Because it is not necessary to set up a session, the application can start sending data. UDP prepends a UDP header, UDP HDR, and passes the PDU to IP layer 3, with an instruction to send the PDU to 192.168.4.2. IP encapsulates the PDU in a layer 3 packet, setting the source IP address, the SRC IP, of the packet to 192.168.3.1, while the destination IP address, DST IP, is set to 192.168.4.2. The host sends any packet that is not destined for the local IP network to the default gateway. The default gateway is the address of the local router, which must be configured on hosts such as PCs, servers, and so on. IP encapsulates the PDU in a layer 3 packet and passes the PDU to layer 2 with instructions to forward the PDU to the default gateway. To deliver the packet, the host needs the layer 2 information of the next hop device. The ARP table in the host does not have an entry and must resolve the layer 2 address or MAC address of the default gateway. The default gateway is the next hop for the packet. The packet waits while the host resolves the layer 2 information. Since the host does not have a mapping of layer 2 and layer 3 addresses for the default gateway, the host uses the standard ARP process to obtain the mapping. The host sends an ARP request to the router. The user has programmed the IP address of 192.168.3.2 as the default gateway. Host 192.168.3.1 sends out the ARP request, and the router receives the request. The ARP request contains information about the host, and the router adds the information in the ARP table. The router processes the ARP request like any other host and sends the ARP reply with the information. The host receives an ARP reply to the ARP request and enters the information in the local ARP table. Now the layer 2 frame with the application data can be sent to the default gateway. The pending frame is sent with the local host IP address and MAC address as the source. However, the destination IP address is that of the remote host, but the destination MAC address is that of the default gateway. When the frame is received by the router recognizes the MAC address and processes the frame. At layer 3, the router sees that the destination IP address is not the router address. A host layer 3 device would discard the frame. However, because this device is a router, the device passes all packets that are for unknown destinations to the routing process. The routing process determines where to send the packet. The routing process looks up the destination IP address in the routing table. In this example, the destination segment is directly connected. Therefore, the routing process can pass the packet directly to layer 2 for the appropriate interface. Layer 2 uses the ARP process to obtain the mapping for the IP address and the MAC address. The router asks for the layer 2 information in the same way as the host. An ARP request for the destination layer 3 address is sent to the link. The destination receives and processes the ARP request. The host receives the frame that contains the ARP request and passes the request to the ARP process. The ARP process takes the information about the router from the ARP request and places the information in the local ARP table. The ARP process generates the ARP reply and sends the reply back to the router. The router receives the ARP reply and takes the information that is required for forwarding the packet to the next hop. The router populates the local ARP table and starts the packet forwarding process. The frame is forwarded to the destination. Note that the router changed the layer 2 address as needed, but the router will not change the layer 3 address. The router changes source and destination MAC addresses while source and destination IP addresses remain the same. Remember that a switch does not change the frame in any way. When the switch receives the frame, the switch needs to forward the frame out to the proper port according to the MAC address table. Here is the host-to-host communications when data passes through a switch. In this example, host A has sent out an ARP request. When the switch receives the frame, the switch needs to forward the frame out on the proper port. However, in this example, the source and the destination MAC addresses are not in the MAC address table of the switch. The switch can learn the port mapping for the source host from the source MAC address in the frame, so the switch will add the port mapping to the table. In this case, the source MAC address from the frame will be referenced to port FA0/1, the port on which the frame has been received. Because the destination address of the frame is a broadcast, the switch has to flood the packet out to all of the ports. The only exception is the port on which the switch received the broadcast frame. The router replies to the ARP request and sends an ARP reply packet back to the sender as a unicast frame. The switch learns the port mapping for the new source host from the source MAC address in the frame. The switch adds the port mapping to the MAC address table. The destination address of the frame is found in the MAC address table. Therefore, the switch can forward out the frame on port FA04/1. The destination address of the frame is found in the MAC address table. Therefore, the switch can forward out the frame on port FA04/1. In the case when the destination address is not found in the MAC address table, the switch would need to flood out the frame on all ports. All frames pass through the switch unchanged. When the MAC address table is built, all unicast frames are sent directly to a destination host based on the destination MAC address and data that are stored in the MAC address table. The following key points were discussed in this module. While switches switch data frames between segments to enable communication within a single network, routers are required to reach hosts that are not in the local LAN. Routers forward packets by learning about remote networks and maintaining routing information. The primary forwarding decision of the router is based on the Layer 3 destination IP address. Routing tables include information about destinations and next hop associations. These associations tell a router that a particular destination is either directly connected to the router or that the destination can be reached via another router. Depending on network size, complexity, desired security, and design, you can choose between configuring static routes, using a dynamic routing protocol, or both. There are three fundamental ways that IPv4 packet delivery occurs: unicast, when traffic is sent from one host to another; broadcast, when traffic is sent from one host to all hosts on the local network; and multicast, when traffic is sent from one host to a group of hosts. And the end-to-end forwarding of data between hosts on different networks requires the services of intermediary switches and routers to appropriately deliver the data.